strong and confident, and that whether she wears a skirt or trousers has nothing to do with it. So it comes down to, what are women capable of doing, regardless of what the world around them is saying.
Okay. Um, so that's the premise of the series. How did you come up with the concept that became the Extraordinaries as a series?
Okay. Well, it starts back about 30 years when I came up with a concept for a series about superheroes. And so I was developing my ideas about these psionic abilities. What would be the limitations? What could you do with them? And it never went anywhere because I wasn't a writer for a long time. Well, I wasn't a writer of fiction for a long time. And it was just something that I played with the, there we've got liberating fight is our biokinetic shaper, able to manipulate her own body and other people's. And so I would, what does that mean? What can she change in other people, and what's the limitation? Well, she has to be able to touch their skin, and she can stop their heart, or she could start it again. Um, and so it went on like that. There were just all these ideas I had that were mostly just for fun. And then back in, I'm going to say 2014, we were talking, my husband and I were talking about what I was going to write next. And he said, well, you like Regency stuff. Why don't you write a Regency fantasy? And I really only knew about Regency romance at the time. There wasn't Naomi Novik, and I don't know, I could be wrong, but I hadn't read Naomi Novik's Temeraire series, so I didn't know anything about it. And I said, well, I don't want to write a romance. And he said, well, just, write a fantasy. And when he came up with it, so it was kind of a challenge to see whether I could do that. And when he came up with that, I thought, well, I have this magic system that is doing nothing. I wonder if I could use that as a framework for magical people during the early 1800s. And so I came up with that, fit that into the world, and came up with a reason for why, there's like a plague or something. I didn't put a lot of effort into that because it didn't really matter. Just that, it was lampshading. But then my husband's like, yeah, well, that the pyrokinetic has to be your first one because you love pyrokinesis. And I said, yes, that's true. And so we came up with this idea of this woman who is the first extraordinary scorcher in England's history in over 100 years. And the thing about scorchers is that because they manifest their talent by setting things on fire, about 80% of them die at manifestation because they do it. Their kids, generally you manifest talent when you're a teenager, and they'll set their room on fire and they just burns them to death. And so she does that. She lights her room on fire and wakes up and extinguishes it with her thoughts. And her father sees her as a pawn. He's going to marry her off to someone that he's very interested in the history of talent in England, and he's got this breeding book, and so he's going to make her he's going to marry her off to somebody who will make great babies, I guess. And rather than do that, she runs off and joins the Royal Navy. And I resurrected the tradition of pirates. This is actually too late for the great days of piracy in the Caribbean, but we had pirates that they were fighting that were preying on England's shipping lanes and destroying ships and making it very difficult. Their attention was split because they're trying to fight Napoleon on one hand, and then they've got all these pirates on the other hand. And so she is sent on a ship to the Caribbean to use her talent to fight pirates. And